Thanks for being here. You've been working to make waves these past couple of weeks, I think it's safe to say, with campaign ads, certainly memorable. You use a flamethrower in one, you have a Spanish translator in another with some phrases from, I think, Speedy Gonzalez to discuss immigration in another. In an ad before that, you promised to arrest and deport every illegal immigrant in Missouri and said you wouldn't ask for permission when it comes to the courts. Before we get to the logistics and legality of that part, we will. How does this type of language and racially charged rhetoric, you could say, help unite voters at a time when parties are saying we need to turn the temperature down?
Well, I don't know why it would be racially charged rhetoric to say that we're going to enforce our immigration laws. I mean, we're a country of laws. We need to protect the sovereignty of the state, which is why I've made a commitment that on day one, we're going to begin a statewide deportation of everybody who's in the state of Missouri illegally. I think that's very straightforward. I also happen to be ready to support every other law in the state of Missouri as well. So I think that what we need from our leaders and what we've been lacking from leaders in Jefferson City, the Kehoe-Parson administration, is they're not tackling these issues. They're not doing anything about the illegals that have come into this state after the border was opened up by Joe Biden in 2021. And the burden that's been placed on our communities is tremendous. Not only are we seeing criminal acts being committed by those that have come here illegally, what about the cost? You know, the cost is estimated to be more than $2 billion a year on the Missouri taxpayers for the burden that's placed on our healthcare systems and educational systems. But what's amazing about that number, that's actually more than we collect entirely in personal property tax. So when I'm also talking about, another plank in my campaign is to get rid of personal property tax, I think those objectives can kind of meet in tandem. So I think that we're seeing more folks respond very favorably to our campaign because we are effective about getting that message out in our ads.
You're proposing mass deportation. How does that work exactly? And how would you know if someone is in the country illegally? The point is, critics are saying that this could lead to racial profiling and just stopping somebody because they're a person of color.
Yeah.
How do you stem that?
Well, first of all, I think one of my biggest critics has been one of my opponents, Mike Kehoe. Mike Kehoe has said he's not for a plan to deport the illegals. He said he calls my plan to deport the illegals impractical. He calls it foolish. That puts Mike Kehoe at odds with Donald J. Trump and myself that are going to deport the illegals. And so functionally how we're going to do it is we're going to declare an invasion under Article 4 of the Missouri Constitution. That is what's going to give law enforcement that which they lack now, which is the authority to do anything. We're going to be able to activate the Highway Patrol, the National Guard, every sheriff in every county of the state to detain people that are suspected of being here illegally and deport them out of the state.
I think that's the part, though. How do you suspect them of being here illegally and not group in people who are here legally and just happen to not be white?
Well, we first of all, we have officers across the state every single day that go after folks that are suspected of committing a crime, and I'm confident that we have some of the best law enforcement in the nation. So they're going to do that, and I think that having talked to a lot of law enforcement, a lot of individuals around the state, we know where a lot of these folks are showing up at because, quite frankly, if you have 70,000 people, that's not a small number. So I am going to work very hard. We're going to have every law enforcement disposal at the state bent toward this effort, and we're going to get our state back.
All right, let's talk about another part of your one of your ads. I think you call it Get Bent was the name of it, where you say that Missourians worship God, not abortion. This is one of the many things you're saying in there. I don't think anybody worships abortion, and many people in Missouri have different religious backgrounds, not just Christianity. How can you assure voters, and by extension all Missourians, that you have their best interests at heart?
Well, because I'm always going to be the one that protects their rights. I think that the proper role of government is to protect your rights, that chief amongst these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So I've always been pro-life. I've been very outspoken about how pro-life that I am. I was the only candidate, I'm the only candidate in this race for governor that voted for the heartbeat bill, which actually led to the prohibition on abortion here in the state of Missouri a couple of years ago. And I'm proud of that fact. On August 7th, when I'm elected governor, or excuse me, elected as the nominee for governor, before I'm governor, I'm going to unite the Republican Party by bringing us together to push back on the abortionists who are trying to instill abortion into our Constitution in November. So this is a fight we've got to have.
If that constitutional amendment that you're talking about, the initiative petition effort to protect abortion rights, reverse the ban, passes in November, and you're elected governor, how do you reconcile that after you take office?
Well, if I'm the nominee, it's not going to pass. And you got to keep in mind that for the past 20 years, Missouri has been one of the leaders in pro-life states around the country. Every 2 years, Missourians show up to send the biggest supermajorities of pro-life legislators and statewide office holders to Jefferson City that we've seen maybe anywhere in these United States. So if we have the right person as the nominee of our party who's going to unite Republicans to fight back against that, I don't think that we're going to have a problem. And you know, really, this is a problem problem that was created by the lack of inaction from one of my opponents, Secretary of State Jay Ashcroft, who is empowered under state code to reject non-constitutional initiative petitions from the ballot in the first place. The abortion ballot language does not have an accurate fiscal note. It has multiple subjects. It should be rejected by the Secretary of State. It should never reach the voters in November. But of course, we have Jay Ashcroft, just like Mike Kehoe, that when we need them the most, they don't do anything.
The Republican state treasurer says that the fiscal note is accurate for that petition effort.
Yeah, the Attorney General said it was very inaccurate, and I agree with the Attorney General. It's inaccurate. It doesn't take into account the cost of all those lost citizens that we're going to sacrifice through the potential bring back of abortion in this state. It doesn't account for that. So I don't know how any self-respecting Republican could say that fiscal note is accurate. It just simply isn't accurate. Secretary Ashcroft should reject it, take it off the ballot, but we've seen him all too often do nothing.
Let's talk about just functioning government in Jeff City, or maybe lack thereof. You've been a state senator for 7.5 years. You've been a very outspoken member of the Conservative Caucus, now the Freedom Caucus, which had purposely held up bills at times to get points across, and I understand that that's part of politics. But I remember you once brought the Senate to a standstill for 41 hours, which was almost a record until it was broken again by another measure. You've been in the middle of infighting with your party. So I guess my question is, if you're governor, how do you plan to get anything done with burned bridges potentially in the General Assembly?
No, because I'm going to do that one thing that the other two candidates haven't been doing and won't do. I'm going to call on Republicans to do Republican things. I look at the other states we're trying to emulate, states like Texas and Tennessee and Florida. It's not that those states don't have moderate Republicans in their legislature. It's not that they don't have the so-called rhinos operating in the legislature here and there that, if given an opportunity, would absolutely betray the GOP principles that they were elected on. But what those states have that we don't is a bold conservative governor that's going to call on Republicans in the state capitol to do those big red Republican things and then hold them accountable if they don't. I'm the guy for precisely all the reasons that you've made. You're right. I don't get along with these special interests down in Jefferson City. I don't work for them. I want to work for the 6 million Missourians who live in this state and need us to confront the swamp. You know, Donald J. Trump is winning the country right now on the message of being a disruptor for the powerful places in the swamp that we have in Washington, D.C. You can bet I'm going to be a disruptor of those powerful places that have profited from all the additional government that we've created over the past 5 years in Jefferson City. Mike Kehoe and Mike Parson have betrayed the Republican brand by doubling the size of government. I mean, we talk about government not working. The past 5 years under Mike Kehoe and Mike Parson have been great for government. They've doubled in size just in the past 5 years. That's more growth we've seen in government than all the Democratic governors combined going back to the founding in the state. I'm going to confront all those special interests that are taking all these tax dollars. We're going to cut the government, and when we do, we're going to get rid of personal property tax and income taxes. And as the guy that's been actually voting for these things and pushing these things in the Senate, my opponents are new to this discussion of saying that they're supporting. Those are just campaign promises. I am the person I've claimed to be. That's why I'm so unpopular in Jefferson City.
I want to touch on something you said about special interests. It wasn't just that, it was Republican leadership calling you a swamp creature and members of the Freedom Caucus just saying, to illustrate a point, that it was gumming up the works of government.
Yeah, I think that's right, because whenever they want to do non-Republican things, we bring things to a standstill. And you know, I think the leadership that made those comments is the exact same leadership that failed to get some of the biggest priorities over the finish line at the end: initiative petition reform, some of the tax cuts that I'm proposing. We have a very liberal leadership team in the Missouri Senate right now. Caleb Rowden has been graded by third parties as one of the most liberal Republicans to ever serve in the Missouri Senate. So yeah, we do have a rhino problem down there, but we're going to take care of that when we have a conservative like me in charge.
Your campaign ads touch on many conservative national political issues. Putting national politics aside just for a moment, if we could,
Sure.
What's the #1 issue facing Missouri within our borders right now?
Illegal immigration. I mean, again, the cost that that's placing on the state right now, our healthcare system, our educational system, is costing us billions of dollars every year. That's the #1. #2 is our tax burden. We're paying twice for services at the local and the state level per person that other big red states like Tennessee and Texas and Florida are paying per person. So we've got to get rid of personal property tax. We've got to get rid of income taxes. So I'm the one with the agenda that's actually going to address these problems. I'm the one that's made a commitment that we're going to detain and deport the illegals in the state, that we're going to eliminate personal personal property tax. I mean, I think there's a lot of folks out there that are going to be listening to this interview that we're doing right now who don't feel like they should have to pay rent to government every December 1st for the crime of owning a car in the form of personal property tax. I'm the only candidate that's talking about getting rid of that tax. That's my commitment. We're going to get rid of that tax. If folks want to stop paying that bill on December 1st, I'm the only choice in this election. So whether it's detaining and deporting the illegals, whether it's eliminating personal property tax and income taxes, whether it's protecting our farmland from being sold to foreign countries, whether it's protecting our children in our schools from this CRT, DEI, transgender nonsense, I'm going to be the protector of rights. I'm going to be the one that's actually going to do all the things that my opponents have just been talking about for years.
You mentioned education. We know you support school choice. What do you think the government's role should be in education?
How about teaching our kids reading, writing, and arithmetic instead of this nonsense that the left is pushing down from Washington, D.C.? We've got terrible outcomes in education right now, in spite of the fact that we're spending a record amount. We've never spent more on public education than we do right now, adjusted for inflation. Never spent more. And yet look at our outcomes. We had less than a third of our children are able to do reading and writing at grade level. And that's been dropping. It's down from 50% from where it was before the COVID environment. So where's that coming from? Well, we have a federal government that's sending money and mandates from Washington, D.C. to forcing DESE to force the public schools to teach things like CRT and DEI, to teach them about this transgender nonsense. I think that by getting rid of all these federal dollars and all these federal mandates and really just working to dismantle these bureaucracies down in Jefferson City, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, one of the worst bureaucracies that we have, we're going to free up those local public schools to actually get back to teaching our kids reading, writing, and arithmetic, and that's going to lead to better outcomes.
Does that mean refusing federal funding?
Yes, you bet. Early and often.
And then what happens at the State Department of Education?
We're gonna make a lot of progress in dismantling the State Department of Education. That's DESE, and right now that DESE is an organization of more than 1,800 folks. Used to be an office of 7 individuals whose only job was to write a check to the local school districts. Now it's 1,800 folks. The dirty secret in Jefferson City is every single one of those legislators that are voting for those big budget bills that fund hundreds of millions of dollars into the bureaucracy of DESE have no idea what most of those folks are actually doing. I'm going to be the reformer of all that broken government. I'm going to be the one that confronts all these status quos. We don't need more good cops. We don't need more compromisers in leadership positions down in Jefferson City. We need a fighter. We need someone that's going to confront all that and get our state government back.
You voted to block key taxes for Medicaid in your time in the Senate. You say abortions are harming women, and as you said, voted for the heartbeat bill, supported the abortion ban. You don't want women to terminate pregnancies. What is your plan for helping families support these children once they're born, potentially, especially low-income families?
Great question. Let's get rid of personal property tax. I mean, personal property tax, we're one of only 21 states that even have personal property tax, and of the 21 states that do, we have the 3rd highest rate of personal property tax on vehicles anywhere in the country. That means that those working and middle income class households that you're talking about are struggling $300 or $400 on December 1st just to be able to keep the car that they need to get to work every single day. So I think that in this case, more government is not the answer. Less government is the answer. We're going to have less government.
I would say a child costs more than $300 or $400 a year, as you know. So are there any other plans to try and help these families if you're saying no abortion?
If we could have every one of those working middle income class families in this room right now, I think that the idea that we could alleviate and get rid of personal property tax would be so overwhelmingly positive and would be the best step forward that they've probably seen from government in a long time. That's a great place to start. We're also going to be talking about getting rid of income taxes in the state. And really, when we get rid of income taxes, that's going to engender and encourage growth in Missouri that we're not seeing right now. And when we start seeing growth, when populations start coming to Missouri, then I think that is going to create an environment that's good for every household in this state. That's what we're missing from those other states, Texas, Tennessee, and Florida. Those states are growing. We are not. We can do a lot better, but we don't need nearly as much government as we have.
You and your opponents say that you should get rid of the Missouri income tax. That's a huge part of where Missouri gets its general revenue. So how do you make that up moving forward? And is it a repeal overnight? You gradually do it? What's your plan?
Well, I think that you're going to have to reduce the size of government. Again, Missouri state budget went from $27 billion in 2017 to $52 billion where it is today. The value of every income tax is about the receipts from income tax is about $8.5 billion every year. So we've got plenty of money. We've just grown government so much that we don't know what to do with all this spending. We have a real big spending problem. I mean, billions of dollars in earmarks, billions of dollars going to a state workforce that's probably twice the size of what we need for a state that has 6 million people in it. So it's there's a lot of frustration there, and so the number one thing that we're going to have to do to unlock getting rid of personal property tax, getting rid of, by the way, personal property tax is only $1.7 billion, so it's even a smaller size than the income tax, but getting rid of both of those is key. You've got to have a fiscal conservative that's going to cut all the spending down in Jefferson City. To hear Mike Kehoe say that he's going to cut the income tax when he's been the one helping grow the budget that's prevented us from cutting the income tax is amazing to me and is very ironic. But you know, the same reason that he didn't want to show up to the debate that we had in St. Louis a little while ago is he doesn't want folks to know who he really is, and that is a big spending liberal that's led Missouri to the brink of ruin as it relates to government in this state.
Let's end in Kansas City. It's been a huge economic story this year, and even from last fall a little bit. The Chiefs and Royals, they tried to kind of rush an issue to the polls. The voters shot that down. Yep. There's talk, everything's on the table, right? We might move to Kansas, which passed star bonds to try to lure them over. How would you try to keep these multi-billion-dollar teams in the state of Missouri?
Well, I tell you, I happen to think that the Chiefs and the Royals are going to maintain their residency here in the state of Missouri. They got a great fan base here. We've had fans that have been supporting them for generations and that are willing to show up at their stadiums and buy $18 hot dogs. So I happen to think they're going to stay here and they're going to make the right choice. But I tell you what, we're not going to do it through any kind of taxpayer bailout for these billionaire owners. We're just not going to do that. In fact, the Missouri that I'm talking about, where we have no personal property tax. If we were living in a Missouri right now that doesn't have any personal property tax, that didn't have any income tax, the Kansas City Chiefs and Kansas City Royals wouldn't even be considering going to any other state, because the environment they'd be looking for, which is more valuable than any taxpayer-funded bailout, would already exist in the state of Missouri. So I disagree stridently with Mike Kehoe and Mike Parson, who are trying to entertain why we should provide these political bailouts, these taxpayer bailouts for these billionaire owners. It's just not going to happen. The next $1 billion that we come across down in Jefferson City, I'm going to use that money to get rid of personal property tax. That's the direction we're going.
We talk about you know, moving out of state. It's not necessarily to a Tennessee or a Texas. It's 10 minutes that way down the road, and so that's a little different here. What would you do as governor if that doesn't work out? If they call your bluff, right, and they say, actually, we're going to go to KCK, do you do anything to try to keep him? Or do you say, thanks a lot?
Every part of my agenda is designed not just to keep the Kansas City Chiefs and the Kansas City Royals, it's designed to keep every business. You know, if any business tomorrow makes a decision to move away from Missouri, it's not because they weren't getting enough taxpayer-funded bailouts. It'll be because we haven't created an environment that's attracting them and encouraging them to stay. And we've seen businesses leave the state of Missouri. The Tyson Group actually closed down some plants in the state of Missouri. You remember this a couple months ago, but they kept plants open in other states. They were choosing Missouri as where they wanted to retract their footprint from. And the reason is because we have things like personal property tax. The reason is because we have things like income taxes that are discouraging them and disincentivizing them to want to be in the show me state. We actually do more of those incentive programs like what the governor is talking about offering the Kansas City Chiefs and Royals per person than almost any state in the union. And look where that's gotten us. We have our population is stagnant. Our residents wake up every day and they turn on the TV and they just hear about other big red states that are doing these big red conservative bold policies, whether it's taxation, whether it's immigration, whatever it is. And I think that the reason I've met so many Republicans that are so frustrated is they're wondering that after 20 years of support of a Republican Party and sending all these supermajorities, why aren't guys like Mike Kehoe and Mike Parson doing anything? When we have the abortionists come after our Constitution, why isn't a guy like Jay Ashcroft doing anything and rejecting that from the ballot because it's so poorly written and unconstitutional? So they want leadership. We have such an absence of leadership in Jefferson City that only by having somebody that's willing to confront this, willing to be the bad guy down there in Jefferson City, are we going to move this state forward. I'm willing to be that bad guy on behalf of every one of the 6 million Missourians that live in this state. Let's go Missouri.
All right. State Senator Bill Eigel, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me.